Tony Stark. I build neat stuff. I got a great girl. And occasionally, save the world. So why can't I sleep?
You elected me on a single platform. I will defend this country at all costs. The Mandarin must be stopped.
You don't know who I am. You'll never see me coming.
What are you going to do about these attacks?
The whole world's gonna be watching.
The question, where is Tony Stark?
Things are different now. I have to protect the one thing that I can't live without. That's you.
Mr. Stark. Today is the first day.
There weren't a lot of people clamoring for my services for something of this degree of budget. There's a whole skill set you have to sort of learn as you go about knowing what visual effects can do and knowing how to apply them, I think. So, but essentially, action's action in a way. So there was a knowledge in the back of my brain that this type of movie is something that is within my wheelhouse. If I was lucky, I was privileged to have the opportunity, largely because of Robert Downey, I think, to come on board and do this project. He had the faith that I would know what to do. And Marvel was great because they sort of spoon feed you. They hold your hand through the visual effects process. And I had an education the past year and a half that is, you know, astonishing in terms of what I was privy to, what I was able to watch and observe in terms of the animators and the pre-visualists and the people working for them to establish the look of a film. It's been great. As far as any movie I approach, worrying about you know, living up to expectations, it's not really my job to worry in a sense. My job is to take on the challenge in front of me, which was simply to generate a story that felt a worthy successor to the previous efforts of these people. We tried to make the biggest, best stew we could with as many fun elements. And the chances to go beyond seeing it as a worrisome burden or a challenge to be apprehended and make it fun. And I got this guy, Drew Pearce, and together we said, oh, all right, here we are, let's make this fun. If you can do that, it will communicate itself to an audience, I think. The Avengers script had been written, but it hadn't been filmed yet. And Drew and I were just given the opportunity to sit in a room and generate stuff. And we sat, and it took us 4 weeks to come up with a rough sense of what we might do with the film. Then we met with Marvel, and we vetted things and broke ideas. And then we came back, and it was another 4 weeks. And now we're writing the first act. And then it took a long time.
We do need backup.
That's your department.
Here's my boys.
They were completely open to the idea of a movie that didn't just attempt to replicate the success of the Avengers or rely too heavily on it, that it was a standalone piece, and they were cool with that. And that was good news for me. The ability to make a thriller that was more real-world seeming was something that appealed. We wanted to ground this to some extent in current events, yeah. The idea of a Mandarin who is not this comic book's portrayal of the sort of fist-shaking, you know, Chinese warlord, but rather a guy who is all things to all people, the uber-terrorist who surrounds himself with this sort of elements of warfare, swords, dragons, historical symbols and emblems of, you know, traditional war. And as such becomes the focus of all these acolytes as this sort of, you know, iconic myth figure who could be anything to anybody, except the one thing that defines him is his unrelenting hatred for Americans. So that to me felt just more interesting and more also in keeping with what Favreau had already established in Iron Man 1, that this was sort of a real world that we live in. It's not a comic book hero, but it's a pulp hero I'm very interested in. I'm writing the script for a thing with my friends called Doc Savage, and I'm really, I don't know if you're familiar with that character. Check it out sometime. It's really 1930s pulp, but I read these as a kid. They've been around for 70, 80 years, but they're great.